Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, the secret of the enchanted cave. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a kind and humble woodcutter named Ali Baba. He lived in a small house with his wife and had just enough money to buy food each day. His older brother Qasim was a rich and greedy merchant who cared only for gold and silver. Unlike Ali Baba, who worked hard every day, Qasim spent his time counting his wealth and looking down on the poor. One hot summer morning, Ali Baba went into the deep forest, carrying only his axe and a small cloth bag filled with bread and water. He planned to chop wood, sell it at the market, and earn enough money to buy food for his wife. As the sun rose high, Ali Baba wiped the sweat from his brow and looked for a good tree to cut. Suddenly, he heard the distant sound of galloping horses. His heart pounded. Who could be riding through the forest at such great speed? Fearing danger, Ali Baba quickly climbed up a tall tree and hid among the thick leaves. Peering down, he saw a group of 40 fierce-looking men on horseback. Each carried heavy sacks on their backs, and their swords and daggers glistened in the sunlight. Ali Baba's eyes widened. These were not ordinary travelers. As they approached a massive rock wall, the leader, a tall man with a thick black beard and a golden sash, raised his arm. The group stopped, and the leader stepped forward. Ali Baba held his breath as he listened. In a deep, commanding voice, the leader said, "Open, Sesame." To Ali Baba's astonishment, the enormous rock rumbled and slid open, revealing the entrance to a dark cave. The thieves disappeared inside, carrying their heavy sacks. Ali Baba could hardly believe his eyes. He waited patiently as time passed. Then, the thieves emerged from the cave, their sacks now empty. The leader once again spoke. "Close, Sesame." With a mighty rumble, the rock slid shut, hiding the entrance as if it had never been there. The thieves mounted their horses and rode away, vanishing into the forest. Ali Baba remained in the tree for a while, making sure they were truly gone. His heart pounded with excitement. Once the forest was silent again, Ali Baba climbed down and approached the giant rock. His hands trembled as he stood before it. Could it be magic? Would the words work for him too? Taking a deep breath, he whispered, "Open, Sesame." To his amazement, the rock shuddered and slid open, revealing the same dark passage. With cautious steps, Ali Baba entered the hidden cave. Inside, his eyes adjusted to the dim light. He gasped. Before him lay mountains of gold coins, silver goblets, sparkling jewels, and exotic silks. The treasure filled the cave from wall to wall. It was more wealth than he had ever seen in his life. Ali Baba realized this was the stolen loot of the 40 thieves. He knew he could never take all of it, but he also knew that a few gold coins would help his family. Carefully, he filled his small cloth bag with as many gold coins as it could carry. He then stepped back toward the entrance and spoke the words, "Close, Sesame." The cave sealed shut, hiding its secret once more. Ali Baba hurried home, his heart racing. His wife, seeing the bag in his hands, asked, "What is this?" When he spilled the gold onto the table, her eyes widened in shock. "We are rich," she whispered. "Not rich," Ali Baba said. "We must be careful. This gold belongs to dangerous men." His wife agreed, but she was curious about how much they had. She ran to their neighbor, Qasim's wife, and borrowed a small weighing scale to measure the gold. Qasim's wife was suspicious. She secretly placed a drop of wax under the scales bowl before giving it to Ali Baba's wife. When it was returned, she checked the wax and found a gold coin stuck to it. That evening, she rushed to tell her husband. Qasim's eyes gleamed with greed when he heard about the gold coin. He stormed into Ali Baba's house. "You must tell me where you got this gold," he demanded. Ali Baba hesitated, but knew his brother would never give up. With a sigh, he revealed the secret of the cave. Qasim's heart pounded with excitement. He planned to take everything for himself. At dawn, Qasim rode into the forest with several large sacks. He found the rock, and just as Ali Baba had said, spoke the words, "Open, sesame." The cave opened, and Qasim stepped inside, laughing greedily. He saw the treasure, far more than he had ever dreamed. He started filling his sacks with gold, silver, and jewels. But in his excitement, he forgot the most important thing, the magic words to exit the cave. When he turned to leave, he stammered, "Open barley." Nothing happened. "Open wheat." The rock remained shut. Qasim panicked. He tried to remember, but the more he thought, the more confused he became. His greedy heart had clouded his mind. He was trapped. As the sun set, the sound of approaching horses filled the air. The thieves had returned. Qasim's heart pounded in terror. The 40 thieves stormed into the cave and found the intruder trembling in fear. Their leader's eyes darkened. "Who dares enter our cave?" he growled. Qasim tried to explain, but the thieves showed no mercy. They drew their swords, and with a swift strike, Qasim's fate was sealed. The thieves knew someone else had discovered their secret. They needed to find out who. And so, the danger for Ali Baba had only just begun. Let me know if you'd like any changes before I start part 2. The Thieves' Revenge. Great, I'll continue with part 2. The Thieves' Revenge. Since Qasim has met his fate, the thieves now suspect that someone else knows about their secret. This part will focus on how they try to uncover Ali Baba and his family, setting up even greater danger. I'll start writing it now. Stay tuned. The morning after Qasim left for the cave, his wife waited anxiously. He had taken several large sacks, hoping to return with mountains of treasure. But he had not come back. As the sun climbed higher, her worry turned to fear. Unable to wait any longer, she rushed to Ali Baba's house. "My husband left early yesterday and has not returned. You must know where he went," she cried. Ali Baba's heart sank. He knew Qasim had gone to the thieves' cave, but if he had not returned, something terrible must have happened. Without wasting time, Ali Baba took a donkey and set off for the forest, his heart pounding with dread. When he arrived at the great rock wall, he clenched his fists and whispered, "Open, sesame!" The cave door rumbled open. Ali Baba stepped inside, his breath catching in his throat. There, among the gold and silver, lay his brother, lifeless. The thieves had made sure that no one would steal from them again. Ali Baba bowed his head. Despite Qasim's greed, he was still his brother. He could not leave him here. He quickly gathered the pieces and wrapped them in cloth. Then he whispered the magic words. "Close, sesame." The cave sealed once more, and Ali Baba placed his brother's remains on the donkey's back, covering them with branches and cloth. He hurried home, determined to keep the secret hidden. Back in the city, Qasim's wife wailed in sorrow, but Ali Baba warned her. We cannot let anyone know how he died, or the thieves will come for us." Together, they formed a plan. Ali Baba's wife went to the home of an old, blind tailor known for his discretion. She whispered, "I need your help, but you must work in secret." The tailor agreed, and Ali Baba led him to Kasim's house, blindfolded. There the tailor stitched Kasim's body back together, never knowing what he had truly been called for. The next day, Kasim's funeral was held, and the townspeople believed he had simply died of illness. No one suspected the truth. Ali Baba thought they were safe. But deep in the forest, the thieves had discovered that Kasim's body was missing, and they were furious. The thieves' leader, his eyes filled with fury, growled, "Someone else knows about the cave." One of the smarter thieves spoke up. "Perhaps the man we killed was not alone." They rode into the city, disguising themselves as merchants. At the market, they asked around, "Hey, have you heard of anyone dying recently?" A merchant spoke up. "Ah, yes. The wealthy merchant Kasim passed away just days ago. A sudden illness, they say." The thieves exchanged glances. The leader whispered, "We have found our intruder." That night, one of the thieves snuck into the city. He found Kasim's house and marked its door with a small white chalk symbol. "This will guide us back," he thought. But early the next morning, Morgiana, Kasim's clever servant, noticed the mark. She sensed something was wrong. Suspicious, she took a piece of red cloth and marked several other houses in the neighborhood in the same way. That night, when the thieves returned, their leader frowned. "Which house is it?" one thief whispered. "They are all marked." Realizing they had been tricked, the thieves scowled. Their plan had failed. But the leader was not ready to give up. "We must find another way." Determined, the leader disguised himself as a wealthy oil merchant and returned to the city. He brought with him 40 large oil jars, but inside 39 of them hid the thieves, crouched in silence. The leader knocked on Ali Baba's door. "Good sir," he said, bowing, "I am but a humble merchant, and I have traveled far. Might I store my jars in your courtyard for the night?" Ali Baba, unaware of the trick, agreed. That evening, Morgiana prepared dinner for the guest. As she walked through the courtyard, she heard something. A whisper. "Is it time yet?" Morgiana froze. The voice came from inside the oil jars. She understood immediately. The thieves are here. She knew she had to act quickly. Without a sound, Morgiana boiled a large pot of oil. She carried it to the courtyard and one by one poured the scalding oil into the jars. One by one, the hidden thieves let out silent gasps until none remained. When the leader came outside, expecting his men to attack, the night was silent. He opened the jars. Empty. His men were gone. Morgiana stood nearby, holding an empty oil pot. "You!" the leader hissed. Morgiana lifted a dagger. "You should leave before you end up like them." The thief knew he was beaten. Furious and afraid, he fled into the darkness. The next morning, Ali Baba learned the truth. He was shocked, but grateful. "Morgiana, you have saved us all," he said. With the thieves gone, Ali Baba no longer lived in fear. He and his family lived happily and wisely, never misusing their fortune. And as for Morgiana, she was no longer just a servant. She was family. But far away, in the shadows, one last thief remained. The leader had survived, and he was not finished yet. Now the leader of the thieves is planning his final revenge. Part 3 will be the leader's last stand, where he tries one last time to defeat Ali Baba. Would you like me to continue? All right. Now we move on to Part 3, the leader's last stand. In this part, the surviving leader of the thieves will attempt his final revenge against Ali Baba, but he will have to face Morgiana's sharp wit once more. Let's dive into the story. The leader of the thieves had lost everything: his men, his gold, and his power. Now, only one thing mattered: revenge. Disguising himself as a wealthy merchant, he returned to the city. This time, he did not bring his men. He would handle Ali Baba himself. He set up a grand shop in the market, selling the finest silks and perfumes. His goods were so exquisite that even the wealthiest citizens flocked to buy from him. Soon word reached Ali Baba. "There is a new merchant in the city," people whispered. "His goods are like nothing we have ever seen." Curious, Ali Baba visited the shop. The thief, hiding behind a fake name, welcomed him warmly. "Ah, a noble man such as yourself deserves the best," he said, bowing. "Please, let me visit your home. It would be an honor." Ali Baba, trusting as always, agreed. That night, the thief prepared his dagger. This time, he would finish the job himself. Morgiana was watchful. She had seen too much deception to trust strangers easily. Something about this new merchant felt wrong. That evening, she spied on him from the shadows, watching as he roamed the house. Then, she saw it. When the merchant thought no one was watching, he reached for his belt, checking the hidden dagger beneath his robe. Morgiana's eyes narrowed. She had seen that look before, the look of a man ready to kill. It was him, the last thief. Morgiana knew she had only one chance. Instead of sounding the alarm, she made a plan. She dressed in her finest silk garments and tied golden bells around her wrists. Then, as Ali Baba and the thief sat for dinner, she entered the room saying, "My master, I wish to perform for our honored guest." Ali Baba smiled. "Of course, Morgiana." The thief, though surprised, nodded. He did not want to draw suspicion. Morgiana danced. Her movements were graceful, her golden bells jingling in rhythm. The guests clapped and cheered. But as she spun closer to the thief, her hand slipped beneath her sash. In a flash, she drew a dagger and plunged it deep into his heart. The thief's eyes widened in shock. "You," he gasped. Then he fell lifeless to the ground. Ali Baba and the guests stared in shock. "Morgiana, what have you done?" Ali Baba cried. She lifted her chin. "My master, this man was not a merchant. He was the leader of the thieves." She pulled aside his robe, revealing the hidden dagger. Ali Baba gasped. He had been seconds away from death. He turned to Morgiana, his heart full of gratitude. "You have saved me once more," he said. "You are not just my servant. You are my family." That very night, Ali Baba freed Morgiana and gave her a place of honor in his home. She would never serve another master again, because she had proven herself the bravest of them all. And so, with the last thief gone, Ali Baba and his family lived in peace. They used their wealth wisely, never becoming greedy, and shared their fortune with those in need. And the words "Open Sesame" were never spoken again.